Welcome to the channel where all you got to do is check the CCs of this combustion chamber. So, had a few questions on the last video I did on porting the cylinder head, and turns out I filled this up with clay in an attempt to mimic what it would look like if I welded this combustion chamber in. And somebody asked me what kind of CCs this chamber has as opposed to stock, so I'm going to show you just how to do that. It's super simple. You need a little bit of equipment, but it's not too bad. First thing you need is just a hunk of, well, Lexan is better. You could use plexiglass, which is just acrylic, which will totally work, but when you drill a hole in it, it wants to crack, and the longer it sits around, it wants to crack. Lexan's a better solution. It's more impervious to whatever fluid you use to start it cracking. So anyway, you need some of that. You need a little bit of grease, put it around the combustion chamber, and that's just a sealant. And then you need some way of measuring the fluid you put in there. I have this 100 milliliter graduated cylinder with a little valve on the bottom. That works pretty good. I used to have a stand for it, but somewhere along the line that somebody wanted that more than me. So I don't have that, but you can just totally hold it in your hand and do it. Or you can buy a stand from wherever, some lab equipment kind of store. So I'm going to get this all set up and show you how we do it. Alright, so this is my graduated cylinders shrine. It's kind of fragile, so I keep it in this so if it falls over, nothing bad happens to it. I suppose you can get these out of plastic, but it's nothing fancy. So 100 milliliters. You put the fluid in there to the top. Set it at 0 by letting a little bit out of here. And then you just open this little guy up until that volume in there is full, and then you read it directly. You don't even have to do math or nothing, or arithmetic even. So again, hunk of plexiglass. I'll do it on this cylinder first, show you how it works, and then I'll put some stock valves in this one, a spark plug. Don't forget the spark plug, otherwise you make a mess. And it's important to intentionally put the cylinder head a little bit crooked. Doesn't matter which way, but you need to have it on a slight angle. I just have a 2x4 under it here, or actually it's a 2x3. So I just have it tipped up on the long end on this end, so all the bubbles come on that end. If you have it really flat, then the bubble might be in the middle, and then it doesn't really work. So. And then this thing you can just, move it around to wherever the high spot is. So, and then I got my box of grease here, which I use for valve keepers. You can use any kind of grease. This actually happens to be kind of yucky black CV grease, but it doesn't matter. It's just a me thing. And you just want to put a tiny little bit around the outside. Alright. So then you just kind of squish that in there like that. And the nice thing about having colorful grease is you can see it pretty good on where it's sealing and where it isn't. So that ought to work. Alright, so got that right at the meniscus, 100 milliliters. So you could use whatever fluid you like on here. Some people use alcohol, some people use acetone. I just use water because it's cheap and doesn't make a mess, and it's not, why make it more complicated than it needs to be? And So I don't know how well you can see that, but there's a little line there and over there where it doesn't have any fluid in it yet. So you just have to kind of watch it real close like. So this part over here isn't quite full, and that part over there isn't quite full. So now it's just got this little bubble here. Okay. So all the bubbles are out of there now. And I think that's completely full. And if I read this, it says 35.2, 35.3 cc's. So we'll write that down here. And that's it. That's all it takes. Again, you can use different fluids, but water totally works fine. And then you can just mop it up with a shop rag or towel or whatever, and you're good to go. Put some stock valves in here. Typically I put a little bit of grease around the stock valves so those don't leak. When there's no springs in it, they kind of leak a little bit. And we'll take a spark plug and jam it into this hole, and we'll do a stock one. See what it is. Okay, so now that you have the chamber volume, you have to know what to do with it. So basically I whipped up this spreadsheet in a couple minutes. Nothing too complicated here. Bore stroke, cylinder displacement. So let me just poke on each one of these things so you can see that's just an entry, that's just an entry. This is basically pi r squared, converting it to cc's, number of cylinders multiplied by cylinder displacement. And then I got gasket thickness. Sometimes those are called out in inches, so I just converted it to inches. And then the same calculation that happens here, pi r squared times basically the piston distance. And then this is the piston volume. So this is the number of cc's just in the piston, and this is the number of cc's just in the combustion chamber. And when you add this and this and this and this together, you get the chamber volume at top dead center, and then if you add that to it, you get the chamber volume at bottom dead center. So this is just 5 of those things added up. This is 4 of those things added up. You divide those two, that gives you your static compression ratio. Now, most people just talk compression ratio, like compression ratio is like really a thing. It really isn't. Like if you have a 9.5 to 1 static compression ratio engine and you put a giant cam in it, you're not going to have 9.5 to 1 compression ratio. Or even a stock cam, you're not going to have 9.5 compression ratio because the valve doesn't close till the piston's, halfway up the hole. So this is used as a reference. Don't get too concerned about it because if you put a big cam in there, that's going down anyway. And then over here, I basically use all the same numbers, except for this is the stock chamber volume that I CC'd on cylinder 2, I think it was. And then this is cylinder 1, which is the porting that I did. Kind of, I guess, stage 1, which is just like a mild port job, stock size valves. So as you can see that, change this back to 17. That gives me 10.7 to 1 compression ratio. And the reason I wasn't concerned, and I think I mentioned this earlier in the video, that 4.6 pistons are super easy to procure because there's 5.4s, which just have a flat top piston, and the piston doesn't even come to the top. And there's 4 valves, and there's 3 valves, and there's 2 valves, and there's PI2 valves, right? So there's a zillion different combustion or piston volumes that you can get. So if I wanted to change this to a 23 cc piston, that brings me back almost to what it was. So that's why I'm not too concerned. You can also play with your deck clearance, which is the distance from where the gasket surface is on the cylinder block to the top of the piston, like how far it's down the hole. Now, sometimes you can run this to be a negative number if the piston, comes up past the deck. It's totally feasible that it can, as long as your gasket thickness is enough to allow for that, to piston not touching the bottom of the cylinder head. And you could also have a piston volume, it's negative. If it's a pop-up piston, that would be a negative volume. So anyway, this is what you do with the numbers. Again, I'm not too concerned about this right now because I'm going to change valves and change combustion chamber shape some more or whatever. But I mean, this gets me into a ballpark. Like I'm in the high 10s, probably a little higher than I want to be. I probably want to be in the low 10s. But I can keep that in mind for the next stage of porting and valve selections and stuff like that. So anyway, if you like this content and want more, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, put something down in the comments if you have any